Okay, guys, so we are on slide 17, which is progress report 8. And just quick recap, if you remember back to slide 16 from Friday, Charlie was kind of feeling angry for the first time. Okay, remember we talked about the fact that he had never been angry before, and this was almost like he had a new emotion entered into his brain, per se, in the surgery. He's frustrated. He doesn't know what to think. Miss Kenyon hasn't come to see him. And he's just mad that things aren't going the way he planned. All right, so we are going to be on slide 17, progress report 8. And on this one, it says highlight how Charlie feels about his job in yellow. And we're going to go ahead. I'm going to start the audio. Here we go.
Progress Report 8, March 23rd. I'm going back to work at the factory. They said it was better I should go back to work, but I can't tell anyone what the operation was for, and I have to come to the hospital for an hour every night after work. They are going to pay me money every month for learning to be smart. I'm glad I'm going back to work because I miss my job and all my friends and all the fun we have there. Dr. Strauss says I should keep writing things down, but I don't have to do it every day, just when I think of something or something special happens. He says, don't get discouraged because it takes time and it happens slow. He says it took a long time with Algernon before he got 3 times smarter than he was before. That's why Algernon beats me all the time, because he had that operation too. That makes me feel better. I could probably do that a maze faster than a regular mouse. Maybe someday I'll be Algernon. Boy, that would be something. So far, Algernon looks like he might be smart permanent.
Okay, good. So now take a minute and highlight how Charlie feels about his job. You can go ahead and pause the video. And then something I want you to note here is the fact that Charlie realizes that Algernon also had the surgery. Okay, so right here, Charlie talks about the fact that Algernon got the surgery and he became 3 times smarter. So that's why he's so hard to beat in the mazes. So what we need to recognize is throughout the story, Algernon is going to act as foreshadowing. So as something happens to Algernon, we can assume then that it will probably happen to Charlie as well. All right, slide 18. Okay, on slide 18, it says highlight at least 3 details that show that Charlie's coworkers aren't truly his friends. And then you're going to have a couple questions here. So I'm going to go ahead and play the audio. And then once the audio is done, I'll talk about the questions, but you're going to need to pause the video so you can complete the answers for those. Here we go.
March 25th. I don't have to write progress report on top anymore, just when I hand it in once a week for Dr. Niemer to read. I just have to put the date on. That saves time. We had a lot of fun at the factory today. Joe Carp said, "Hey, look where Charlie had his operation." "What did they do, Charlie? Put some brains in?" I was going to tell him, but I remembered Dr. Strauss said no. Then Frank Riley said, "What did you do, Charlie? Forget your key and open your door the hard way?" That made me laugh. They're really my friends, and they like me. Sometimes somebody will say, "Hey, look at Joe or Frank or George. He really pulled a Charlie Gordon." I don't know why they say that, but they always laugh. This morning, Amos Borg, who is the foreman at Donegan's, used my name when he shouted at Ernie, the office boy. Ernie lost a package. He said, Ernie, for God's sake, what are you trying to be? A Charlie Gordon? I don't understand why he said that. I never lost any packages.
Okay, so I'm assuming you figured out the fact that Charlie's so called friends aren't truly his friends. And they basically use him as their butt of their jokes. The first question says, so first make sure you do your highlights. Highlight at least 3 details that show that Charlie's coworkers aren't truly his friends in pink. And then the first question says, why did Amos Borg mean what he mean, or what did Amos Borg mean when he shouted, for God's sakes, what are you trying to be? A Charlie Gordon to Ernie, the office boy. And that was when Ernie lost a package. Well, obviously, anytime anyone does something kind of dumb, they are calling it a Charlie Gordon. Okay? So go ahead and make sure you take a minute and answer that question. And then the second one says, why do you think Charlie believes his coworkers like Joe Carp and Frank Raleigh are his friends and that they like him? So what is it about the way that they deal with Charlie that makes Charlie believe they are his friends? And I'm going to let you answer that question. Okay. Slide 18. Well, we should be done with. Slide 19 is the one that we're on now. So on this one, it says, what have you begun to notice about Charlie's writing? What might that indicate about his operation? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and play this one all the way through and just kind of keep track of how he's writing and see what changes you notice. Here we go.
March 28th. Dr. Strauss came to my room tonight to see why I didn't come in like I was supposed to. I told him I don't like to race with Algernon anymore. He said I don't have to for a while, but I should come in. He had a present for me, only it wasn't a present, but just for Lynn. I thought it was a little television, but it wasn't. He said I got to turn it on when I go to sleep. I said, you're kidding. Why should I turn it on when I'm going to sleep? Who ever heard of a thing like that? But he said if I want to get smart, I got to do what he says. I told him I didn't think I was going to get smart. And he put his hand on my shoulder and said, Charlie, you don't know it yet, but you're getting smarter all the time. You won't notice for a while. I think he was just being nice to make me feel good because I don't look any smarter. Oh, yes, I almost forgot. I asked him when I can go back to the class at Miss Kinnian's school. He said I won't go there. He said that soon Miss Kinnian will come to the hospital to start and teach me special. I was mad at her for not coming to see me when I got the operation. But I like her, so maybe we will be friends again.
Okay, so quick pause. Make sure you pause and take a minute to answer this question if you need to. And if you do notice, there's still many spelling mistakes. He's left out apostrophes, but his descriptions are much better. He's much more specific in the way that he describes things. He talks about Dr. Strauss putting his hand on his shoulder and what he said. So he's able to describe things just much better than he was um, prior to the surgery. All right, slide 20. All right, so what do you think the little television does to Charlie in his sleep? So they brought him something here on this slide on March 28th. They brought him something, he said it was for Lend. Okay, and that's what they're talking about here, and that's why the picture's on slide 19 of that. So let's go ahead and listen, and what do you think they are trying to help him do in his sleep?
March 29th. That crazy TV kept me up all night. How can I sleep with something yelling crazy things all night in my ears? And the nutty pictures. Wow, I don't know what it says when I'm up, so how am I going to know when I'm sleeping? Dr. Strauss says it's okay. He says my brains are learning when I sleep, and that will help me when Miss Kinnian starts my lessons in the hospital. Only I found out it isn't a hospital, it's a laboratory. I think it's all crazy. If you can get smart when you're sleeping, why do people go to school? That thing, I don't think will work. I used to watch The Late Show and The Late Late Show on TV.
All right, sorry guys. Apparently my Google slide decided to log me out, so let me just hit play, and I might have skipped a couple words. Just go back and read the few things. Okay, here we go.
Never made me smart. Maybe you have to sleep while you watch it.
Okay, so for this slide, um, he first of all, I want to point out we talked about this before that it didn't seem like he was really in a hospital, but it seemed more like a laboratory. And we were right. He said that he just learned that he said, only I found out it isn't a hospital, it's a laboratory. So you can think about kind of the difference between those things. And then, what do you think the little television does to Charlie in his sleep? He says that he has all sorts of pictures playing there, and he says it's yelling crazy things all night in his ears. So, obviously, they're trying to get him to learn something. What do you think it might be? All right, slide 21. Here we go.
Progress Report 9, April 3rd. Dr. Strauss showed me how to keep the TV turned low so now I can sleep. I don't hear a thing. And I still don't understand what it says. A few times I play it over in the morning to find out what I learned when I was sleeping, and I don't think so. Miss Kinnian says maybe it's another language or something, but most times it sounds American. It talks so fast, faster than even Miss Gold, who was my teacher in sixth grade. And I remember she talked so fast, I couldn't understand her. I told Dr. Strauss, what good is it to get smart in my sleep? I want to be smart when I'm awake. He says it's the same thing, and I have two minds. There's the subconscious and the conscious. That's how you spell it. And one don't tell the other one what it's doing. They don't even talk to each other. That's why I dream. And boy, have I been having crazy dreams. Wow. Ever since that night TV, the late show, I forgot to ask him if it was only me or if everybody had those two minds. I just looked up the word in the dictionary Dr. Strauss gave me. The word is subconscious, edge, of the nature of mental operations, yet not present in consciousness, as subconscious conflict of desires. There's more, but I still don't know what it means. This isn't a very good dictionary for dumb people like me.
All right, quick pause. So he talks just a little bit about the TV that is playing. They think maybe it's another language. He says he thinks that sounds American. American is not a language, in case you were wondering. And then he learned a little bit about his conscious and his subconscious mind. Okay. And he's having a difficult time here with the dictionary and not understanding it, which I believe even intelligent people have a hard time with the dictionary sometimes. All right, slide 22. All right, so back to Charlie's friends. So it says, why did Joe and Frank ask Charlie to come to Muggsy's saloon with them? And what did Joe mean when he stated Charlie is a card when he's potted? All right, here we go.
Anyway, the headache is from the party. My friends from the factory, Joe Carp and Frank Riley, invited me to go with them to Muggsy's saloon for some drinks. I don't like to drink, but they said we will have lots of fun. I had a good time. Joe Carp said I should show the girls how I mop out the toilet in the factory, and he got me a mop. I showed them, and everyone laughed when I told that Mr. Donegan said I was the best janitor he ever had because I like my job and do it good and never come late or miss a day except for my operation. I said Miss Kinnian always said, Charlie, be proud of your job because you do it good. Everybody laughed, and we had a good time, and they gave me lots of drinks. And Joe said, Charlie is a card when he's potted. I don't know what that means, but everybody likes me. We have fun. I can't wait to be smart like my best friends Joe Carp and Frank Riley.
Okay, so the first question says, why did Joe and Frank ask Charlie to come to Muggsy's saloon with them? I'm going to let you go ahead and answer that one and try to figure out why would they invite Charlie. And then what did Joe mean when he says Charlie is a card when he's potted? Basically, when Charlie's been drinking a lot, they can laugh at him. That's all that means. And then I kind of want to point out the very last line here where it says, I can't wait to be smart like my best friends, Joe Carp and Frank Riley. And remember, we talked about his intelligence and how it's going to be tripled and, over 200 essentially once his brain is done developing after the surgery. And you have to ask yourself, is he really going to be smart like his best friends? Or is he just going to be way beyond them? If he gets to the 200, is he still going to be out? Is he going to be friends with Joe Carp and Frank Riley? Or what do you think is going to happen in situations like this? Okay. If you need to answer the questions, take a minute, pause the video so you can answer the questions. All right, slide 23. So in this one, you're going to highlight in yellow what Joe and Frank sent Charlie to get after the party. Here we go.
I don't remember how the party was over, but I think I went out to buy a newspaper and coffee for Joe and Frank, and when I came back, there was no one there. I looked for them all over till late. Then I don't remember so good, but I think I got sleepy or sick. A nice cop brought me back home. That's what my landlady, Mrs. Flynn, says. But I got a headache and a big lump on my head and black and blue all over. I think maybe I fell. But Joe Carp says it was the cop. They beat up drunks sometimes. I don't think so. Miss Kinnian says cops are to help people. Anyway, I got a bad headache and I'm sick and hurt all over. I don't think I'll drink anymore.
All right, so one more time, don't forget to do your highlight. What they sent Charlie to get. And obviously, they probably didn't actually want him to get that because when he came back with it, they were gone. So the question says, why did Charlie have a big lump on his head and why was he black and blue all over? What can you infer happened to him based on how he was being treated at the saloon? Well, if you look back to slide 22, um, they had him getting a mop out. They said that he always had a good time, so he probably wasn't being treated very well here. But plus, they were feeding him drinks, so he was probably falling a lot. And I doubt that they were really helping to take care of him very well. All right, slide 24. All right, so it says highlight in green a clue that tells you the other tests with animals haven't been successful. All right, here we go.
April 6th. I beat Algernon. I didn't even know I beat him until Bert the tester told me. Then, the second time, I lost because I got so excited. I fell off the chair before I finished. But after that, I beat him 8 more times. I must be getting smart to beat a smart mouse like Algernon. But I don't feel smarter. I wanted to race Algernon some more, but Bert said that's enough for one day. They let me hold him for a minute. He's not so bad. He's soft like a ball of cotton. He blinks, and when he opens his eyes, they're black and pink on the edges. I said, can I feed him? Because I felt bad to beat him, and I wanted to be nice and make friends. Bert said no, Algernon is a very special mouse with an operation like mine, and he was the first of all the animals to stay smart so long. He told me Algernon is so smart that every day he has to solve a test to get his food. It's a thing like a lock on a door that changes every time Algernon goes in to eat. So he has to learn something new to get his food. That made me sad because if he couldn't learn, he would be hungry. I don't think it's right to make you pass a test to eat. How would Dr. Niemer like it to have to pass a test every time he wants to eat? I think I'll be friends with Algernon.
All right, good. So they said in here that Bert said, no, Algernon is a very special mouse with an operation like mine, and he was the first of all the animals to stay smart so long. So they've only ever had one mouse stay smart or keep his intelligence, and then they used Charlie to do an experiment. So, more kind of some thoughts on, was this a good idea? Is this safe? Is this a right thing to do? Just think about that a little bit. Okay, on to slide 25. So this one says highlight in yellow an inference that Charlie is able to make that he wouldn't have been able to make without the operation. So something that he figures out um, based on other information. Okay, here we go.
April 9th. Tonight after work, Miss Kinnian was at the laboratory. She looked like she was glad to see me, but scared. I told her, don't worry, Miss Kinnian, I'm not smart yet. And she laughed. She said, I have confidence in you, Charlie. The way you struggled so hard to read and write better than all the others, at worst, you will have it for a little while, and you're doing something for science. We are reading a very hard book. I never read such a hard book before. It's called Robinson Crusoe, about a man who gets marooned on a desert island. He's smart and figures out all kinds of things so he can have a house and food, and he's a good swimmer. Only I feel sorry because he's all alone and has no friends. But I think there must be somebody else on the island because there's a picture with his funny umbrella looking at footprints. I hope he gets a friend and not be lonely.
All right. So remember, you're highlighting an inference that he has to make, and we're talking about an inference about the story. So something that he figures out based on a picture. What does he figure out? It's toward the bottom here. All right. Slide 26. We have April 10th and April 14th. Um, don't worry about the bonus thing here, okay? Don't, yeah, don't worry about it.
April 10th. Miss Kinnian teaches me to spell better. She says, look at a word and close your eyes and say it over and over until you remember. I have lots of trouble with through, that you say through, and enough and tough, that you don't say enu and two. You got to say enough and tough. That's how I used to write it before I started to get smart. I'm confused, but Miss Kinnian says there's no reason in spelling. April 14th. Finished Robinson Crusoe. I want to find out more about what happens to him, but Miss Kinnian says that's all there is. Why?
All right, like I said, you don't have to worry about the whole punctuating this that's on the board. If you want to try, go ahead. But if you notice, he is getting to be a better speller and he's able to understand more. And I totally agree with the comment about Miss Kenyon says there's no reason in spelling. Very true. All right, slide 27. We're going to go through 20, or we're going to go through 30 today. All right, so Charlie says, the question says, what does it mean when Charlie states she got something in her eye and she had to run to the ladies' room? Here we go.
April 15th. Miss Kinnian says I'm learning fast. She read some of the progress reports and she looked at me kind of funny. She says I'm a fine person and I'll show them all. I asked her why. She said never mind, but I shouldn't feel bad if I find out that everybody isn't nice like I think. She said, for a person who God gave so little to, you done more than a lot of people with brains they never even used. I said, all my friends are smart people, but they're good. They like me, and they never did anything that wasn't nice. Then she got something in her eye, and she had to run out to the ladies' room.
Okay, now obviously Miss Kenyon didn't get something in her eye. She was upset. And I want you to think back to the way that Charlie's friends had treated him. And she was reading the progress reports that he had written about his friends from the factory. So go ahead and come up with your explanation here. Remember to pause if you need to. All right. So today it says rewrite the journal entry using the appropriate correct punctuation. You do not have to do this writing part, but I will warn you, this is kind of a crazy one because Charlie learns how to use that there are other punctuation marks other than the period. So he kind of goes a little crazy with them. Here we go. But you don't have to do the rewriting it. We'll just skip that one.
April 16th. Today I learned the comma. This is a comma, a period with a tail. Miss Kinnian says it's important because it makes writing better. She said somebody could lose a lot of money if a comma isn't in the right place. I don't have any money, and I don't see how a comma keeps you from losing it. But she says everybody uses commas, so I'll use them too.
All right. So obviously, this is new for Charlie, and he doesn't understand how commas are used in money. But he's figuring it out. All right. Slide 29, April 17th. Now it says highlight in pink where Charlie actually gets the punctuation correct in the excerpt above. So just pick an area where he does use the punctuation correctly and highlight it with pink. Here we go.
April 17th. I used the comma wrong. It's punctuation. Miss Kinnian told me to look up long words in the dictionary to learn to spell them. I said, "What's the difference if you can read it anyway?" She said, "It's part of your education, so now on I'll look up all the words I'm not sure how to spell. Takes a long time to write that way, but I think I'm remembering. I only have to look up once, and after that I get it right. Anyway, that's how come I got the word punctuation right. It's that way in the dictionary. Miss Gideon says a period is punctuation too, and there are lots of other marks to learn. I told her I thought all the periods had to have tails, but she said no, you got to mix them up. She showed me how to mix them up, and now I can mix up all kinds of punctuation in my writing. There are lots of rules to learn, but I'm getting them in my head. One thing I like about dear Miss Kinnian, that's the way it goes in a business letter if I ever go into business, is she always gives me a reason when I ask. She's a genius. I wish I could be smart like her. Punctuation is fun.
Okay, so obviously Charlie got excited again about punctuation. Don't forget to find a sentence, probably near the top here, that is correct in its punctuation. And then something I want to point out again, where at the bottom, where he says, I wish I could be smart like her. That's really kind of dramatic or situational irony, kind of both, because we know that he is going to be much smarter than her. But also, he's wishing he could be smart like her, and he actually is going to far surpass her intelligence, along with everybody else that he knows. Or at least if the surgery works right. Okay, April 18th. And then it says, what changes do you notice in Charlie's writing and his character and personality? So, how's his writing changing? Obviously, improving. But then his personality. Okay, how is he changing there? And then why does he no longer race with Algernon? So, you kind of got three questions here. Make sure you answer all of them in the box. Here we go.
April 18th. What a dope I am. I didn't even understand what she was talking about. I read the grammar book last night and it explains the whole thing. Then I saw it was the same way as Miss Kinnian was trying to tell me, but I didn't get it. I got up in the middle of the night and the whole thing straightened out in my mind. Miss Kinnian said that the TV working in my sleep helped out. She said I reached a plateau. That's like the flat top of a hill. After I figured out how punctuation worked, I read over all my old progress reports from the beginning. Boy, did I have crazy spelling and punctuation. I told Miss Kinnian I ought to go over the pages and fix all the mistakes, but she said, "No, Charlie. Dr. Nemur wants them just as they are. That's why he let you keep them after they were photostated to see your own progress. You're coming along fast, Charlie." That made me feel good. After the lesson, I went down and played with Algernon. We don't race anymore.
Okay, so I am going to go ahead and let you answer this question on your own. And we will pause on this slide, on slide 30 for today. Now, make sure that you have all of the questions answered because tomorrow we'll pick up with slide 31. Thanks, guys.